Booster Gold, the greatest hero you've never heard of. That slogan, while funny, has been getting less and less accurate over time as Booster has made his way into adaptations and is said to be getting a TV series time of recording. And if it's after and it came out, how was it? Even if that slogan was entirely accurate and almost no one had heard of him, he's still one of my faves. Booster is a time-traveling based hero, having come to the past from the future after his life went downhill there because of poor decisions on his part, involving betting on his own games and losing his football scholarship. Some of the details around why that happens have changed in various origins. We did videos on his first ever origin and his first appearance way back in the early days of this channel. Side note, time of recording, we just recently crossed over 600 videos on this channel. That's horrifying. Sheer madness. And it's only gonna keep growing too. The thing with time travel is that it can be tricky to work with narratively. And with a character like Booster, who exists inside the DC universe, that siren call of having him take part in stories where he tries to alter the history of the DC universe, and then that leads to unexpected outcomes, can be very hard to either resist or use well. It can be done, and there have been some poignant stories using this concept, exploring the idea of, do certain events have to happen? And that sometimes the answer is yes, and that while it may be sad for certain individuals, it's better on the whole for the multitude. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one, basically. And oftentimes this would end up being quite sad for Booster himself, and as time went on he would mature because of these events. They would also teach him to treat his time travel abilities with respect. So you have stories like that, and then you have stories like The Gift, an off-the-walls 3-part story that makes very little sense when you examine it. But before we rush in with Booster, there's still a little bit of time to get a gift for yourself. I've been working with Dynamite Comics to produce a special variant cover and tee for the latest Kickstarter project, and there is still just a little bit of time of recording to go and get it if you're interested. It's for Cullen Bunn and Blackie Shepherd's H.P. Lovecraft's Re-Animator, The Eternal Lie Part 2. The story goes that Herbert West's Re-Animator serum has been stolen by a cult, and he needs to go on a quest to get it back. Blackie did an awesome job on this cover. It's just a really fun image overall. It turned out really cool. The tees are $25 and run from small to XXL, and the special variant cover is $20. So if you love Re-Animator and Casually Comics, and you want to check this comic book out and help support the channel, the link will be down below. And now back to The Gift. It's been on my mind as of late, as has Booster, because when we did our video about Future Man, one of those Silver Age suitors for Lois Lane, he came from the future, had blonde hair and a golden outfit. Very Booster Gold. It made me remember The Gift and want to revisit this story because we've actually never talked about it on this channel before, until now. This is a story that paints Booster Gold not in the best light. At times, he comes across like an idiot or a sociopath, even though that is most likely not meant to be the intention, as the story is attempted to play with some psychological traumas, but the execution is quite interesting. This story opens with Hal Jordan killing himself in front of Booster Gold, and Booster thinking it's cool. Let me show you an example. The ring won't let you hurt yourself, right? That's a big rule. But with enough willpower, and let's face it, who has more of that than me? I'm pretty sure I can get past that rule. Do you want to see? Do you dare me? Yeah, you dare me. Boom. Woo. That was intense. Seriously intense, but you know, awesome! Booster as a character is one who is oft reset to his starting point, and has a personality that can come across as very simplistic, even though it's pretty complex, and it lends itself to being flanderized into just pure comedic relief. It's very easy to see him portray him as an immature and jokey character. But there's more to him than that, and there always has been since he debuted in the 80s. A lot of the flash and glitz were surface traits, and the materialism was something he would find more of a balance with. But this is not the Booster of the 80s, but one who has been reset and then has moved forward from that point a little bit. But this story very much takes Booster and places him in the personality and state that he needs to be, and not necessarily where he has been up to this point. The Gift is a 3-issue story arc spanning Batman issues 45 to 47, and it's from the year 2018. This was during the Tom King run of Batman, and this was very much right up at the lead up to the Batcat wedding that did not happen, which was supposed to be in issue 50. The art is by Tony S. Daniel, with inks by Daniel and then a different person each issue, and the colors are by Tomo Moray. The premise of this short storyline is that Booster wants to get Batman a gift, a wedding gift. And what do you get for the man who has everything? Why, a timeline where his parents are still alive. That, for the man who has everything, was deliberate phrasing on my part, because this story will make direct reference to that Superman story by Alan Moore from Superman Annual number 11 from 1985. This was the story where Superman got the Black Mercy stuck to his chest, courtesy of Mongol, and he sees a life that he potentially would have lived had Krypton not exploded. It's a very heartfelt story of Superman having to give that life up and come back to reality, all while his his friends fight a dramatic battle around him in the Fortress of Solitude. And even inside the vision, the life that he's living is slowly falling apart around him. There is also a very solid DCAU adaptation of this story under the same name, done in Justice League Unlimited. There was no Jason Todd Robin in that, because at that time there wasn't a Jason Todd Robin in the DCAU. That's the DC Animated Universe. And they would make his dream world nicer too. It did not go as hard as that Alan Moore story did. Superman number 11 is the canon explanation given in this story for why Booster wants to give Bruce this specific gift. And once you see that, you can see the ways thematically that this story is aspiring to be like that one. It follows the same structure. That's seeing the alternate world, it getting worse, building to a crescendo, and then being pulled out of it. But there are some key differences as well, like not having the main hero be the lens through which the altered world is viewed in this one. I remember that story you and Soups tell about the orchid thing, where Soups was trapped in his mind, trapped thinking like his planet survived. He had this whole life. Then Soups realized how things weren't so great in that what if scenario, and so he chose to come back from the orchid thing. And then he knew this life was better, even with the sad and whatever. That's a pretty good gift, you gotta admit, knowing your life is a worthwhile life. So that's what I got for you, for your wedding. See, Skeets here's got a little time machine in him, so we went back and saved your parents, so you could like see what happens. And it's terrible, right? There's like Joker, Hal shooting himself and everything's on fire, Batman's all into killing. Ugh. So now you get this moment where you see the terrible and get peace. And then we'll use Skeet's time machine and go back and, well, not kill your parents per se, but you know, several things. One, that's not really how that Superman story went down. In that story, there's a very logical progression as to how Krypton has changed and what has occurred with the characters as a result of Krypton not exploding. Whereas in this story, The Gift, the changes are much more random. What does Bruce's parents not dying have to do with President Cobblepot? Not a whole lot unless you apply butterfly effect logic, which is what this seems to be going for. Just, oh, one thing changed and so anything could have changed. But then that pulls it away from that first story for The Man Who Has Everything, where it was much more contained. 2, that experience for Clark was a very traumatic experience. He was pretty messed up at the end of it. It was a bittersweet ending. Not a, now look at how awesome my life is, yay. And the thing is, if there's meant to be a contrast between that story and how Booster sees it, it doesn't fully work because there's no guarantee that the reader has read the story that is being referenced, and there's not an editor's note to go back to it or anything. So the reader basically has to take Booster's word for it because they haven't been given a reason not to at this point. Superman Annual number 11 does end with Superman and Wonder Woman making out, but even that isn't very idealized. It's almost like a little dig at people who want them together, actually. Why don't we do that more often? I don't know. Too predictable? You're probably right. Also, in For the Man Who Has Everything, the Black Mercy ends up on Bruce, and he sees a world where his parents don't die. So that seems like a pretty big omission to not have told Booster for Booster not to know. And if so, and he knew that, isn't he already repeating the gift? Batman's already seen that. No re-gifting. 3, an alternate timeline is very different than what happened in For the Man Who Has Everything, which was a vision / hallucination. This is a full-blown separate timeline. There's no reason Bruce should know or feel different. As far as he's concerned, his life has always been this way. And now some random superhero showing up and telling him, no, there's an entirely different life where your parents are dead, but other things are better, allegedly. Happy wedding! Which isn't happening because this is an alternate timeline. Ready to go back to that other timeline that you have no reason to remember or have any emotions connected to anyway? The logic of this part of the story does not track. And Booster should know that. And this is one of those things that makes it come across like Booster is not the most intelligent character. Beyond being immature or irresponsible or jokey, just completely incompetent. However, somehow Bruce has always known that there was some other life. There were vestiges, he was having dreams somehow. And he's feared Booster's coming because of this. And a move most should have seen coming, he wants to stay in the My Parents Are Alive timeline. So he destroys Skeets and traps Booster. Booster in this story is a bit hard to sympathize with. He can be very off-putting because they push him so hard into the comic relief role for most of it. Even in moments that are meant to be serious, there are brief moments where cracks show, but he can be so unlikable for the rest of the time that if this was meant to be a commentary on Booster's mental state after his travels and dealing with a different timelines or just his own past, it doesn't fully land. Again, also because one would have to be more familiar with Booster to be able to see those things right off the bat. Unless one's simply willing to go along with the psychological concepts that are being presented and then view the story and the character as secondary. But Booster's got jokes for most of this. There's a running joke with a cheese platter that comes up in all 3 issues and it leads to fart jokes. Nothing against fart jokes. You can have a very good, nice one, but these are just subpar. He's got a butler and a mansion and like 3 other mansions. Why would he need a cheese tray? I don't know. Perhaps he needs to cut cheese. What are you saying? He needs to cut the... No, please, Booster. You're above that. Am I? Well, technically though, but I do have hopes that Bruce Wayne wedding night, cutting the cheese. I love you, Bat. Oh yes, and I love you, Cat. And also... Booster is also presented as very unobservant, just very wrapped up in his own thought process. He doesn't even wonder why the Selena Kyle he goes to get after Bruce destroys Skeets doesn't speak and instead only says meow. Also ignores the fact that she's a serial killer. There's no reason in this universe Bruce and Selena would like each other. Bruce's family has spent their life trying to clean up Gotham and failing. So why would Bruce want to be with her? This is the universe where he should be with Silver St. Cloud. Maybe. I mean, Tom King used Silver St. Cloud once in that Elmer Fudd story so they could redo the movie Laura. So then that's the solution. It should be the solution. We just have to find what Batman loves. And you're what Batman loves. He loves you so much. He did all this stuff for you and you for him. And he's gonna marry you. Not here, over there, but here's like there. We're here, so you're here. So we get you to Batman and he'll see he loves you and should marry you because love finds a way and all you have is love and love is here to stay. And then he'll see that here he can't, but there he can, he has to, or he will, then he'll want to turn here into there and everything is fine and good again. So that's the plan. What do you think? Meow. Now you could argue it's been a year, Booster's unstable, trapped in another timeline, it's stressful. Or you could actually have gone for an explanation that your mental state does degrade if you stay too long in another timeline. However, that's not what's going on here. This is the same kind of logic he's been using since the beginning of the story. And the work hasn't been done in this story to establish Booster as this unstable before this point. So he just comes across as incredibly deluded the entire time. And as a reader, it can be very easy to just sit there and wonder why he's doing what he's doing. Stop it, get some help. Although of course mileage varies. You may find him quite amusing if you're enjoying the types of jokes that he's cracking. Now, as mentioned, this story aspires a bit to be for the man who has everything. So like in that story, the status quo of the world degrades over the issues. When Booster finally gets Catwoman, who he gets in issue 2 of the story, so 46, and he gets her to Bruce, she tries to kill his father, and all of this culminates in a shootout that leaves Catwoman, Batman, who in this timeline is Dick Grayson, and Bruce's parents dead, all shot before his eyes, although there is a nice symbolic moment where Bruce is the person who shoots Batman in the head, but it's a bit buried in how over the top the entire scene is. Mother, get out! Thomas! Selena Kyle, die! Ugh. Mother! No! Here's the thing with this scene versus the escalation in For the Man Who Has Everything. There are different factors at play that make the latter work. One, the way things are moving and degrading is tied to the core chains of Krypton not exploding. So Jor-El being bitter and trying to find a new meaning in life that goes horribly out of control and Krypton spiraling politically, as well as his poor relationship with Clark, all of that works because you understand where it's coming from. It's all tied back to that original change. And as that escalates outside in the non-Vision part of the story, the battle is also getting more and more dire alongside the state of fake Krypton, highlighting the need for Superman in the real world. It's paralleled. Here, things are just escalating at random, and oftentimes in the background. You don't really see how the world is degrading. You hear about it and see things on fire, and many of the changes that you do see don't fully tie into Bruce's parents being alive. What about Bruce not being Batman has led to a gun-toting Dick Grayson Batman who kills? Why is he even calling himself Batman? Did the bat fly through his window too? You could still have him be a vigilante or even a brutal one because of how Gotham is, but why not have him have a name that's tied to perhaps his circus history? Or take a brief moment to show why he is the way he is, because they do that for other characters. You see Tim bored out of his mind. They stop and show Talia sparring with her father, saying that she has no heir and never will because there's no man who's worthy. Also, Ra's al Ghul controls Eurasia because apparently Bruce Wayne Batman not being there allowed that to happen. How? Just cuz. Yes, Eurasia. Raisa's been busy. There have also apparently been deaths of many other heroes in this universe because Batman's not there. It's like DC's The Nail, except it's not explicitly playing in that idea of the butterfly effect, and it's instead coming across like you're supposed to be able to make the connections because it is showcasing so many people directly related to Bruce's life. What the story does contain instead are some over-the-top sensational and violent moments, usually featuring people connected to Batman. On the just for the sake of it side, we see Duke Thomas, who is brain damaged, just cuz, and then we never see him again. We see Jason Todd selling tire protection that can electrocute you, and that's on the humor front. Though that too comes across a bit gratuitous because it's killed 17 people. It's one of those moments where it's just a reference to how Jason was shown stealing tires in his rebooted origin post-Crisis, and that's how Batman met him. Plus, it's a Joker shown being electrocuted. So there's a bit of a, in this universe he didn't die being beaten to death by a crowbar / exploding because of the Joker, but it's still not a very natural flow to how his life would have gone most most likely, had he not met Bruce, because he was already pulling petty crimes and living on the streets at that point as a child. Controversial tire mogul is an amusing outcome for Jason, but not the most likely. Basically, this tale lacks the in-universe verisimilitude for the man who has everything. Another factor not in the gift's favor is the core character of Batman comes across badly. Whereas for the man who has everything, Clark still feels like himself as he watches Krypton crumble around him, and you really feel for him as he comes to realize his world isn't real. Here, Bruce comes across like an extremely selfish person. After he learns that he is Batman, and he realizes this, and he lives in this world where his city is falling apart. This despite his parents' best efforts, both philanthropically and politically, and it's something that they wanted, to see Gotham be in a better state. His dad even has a heart attack while they're discussing this. Still, he refuses to even entertain the idea of going back to the original timeline, because his parents being alive is more important than anything else. That's how it's presented. Not that Booster ever really tries to showcase how the other world is better or tell him anything about that. Instead, we just see him going straight to Selina, meow. A whole year trapped in this timeline, and his solution was a meet cute. He even calls it that. Issue 47 really hammers home the Bruce not coming across well point. Now with his parents dead, another year has passed, and he's been keeping Booster Gold trapped and chained in the not Batcave. Bruce fixes Skeets as Gotham continues to disintegrate and the world, but all he wants is to go back in this timeline to before his parents died and save them so this timeline can keep going. Since Bruce is meant to have some vestigial sense of the first timeline somehow, this really doesn't come across well. He would rather have the world burn. Nothing is more important than his parents. Not Gotham, not his family, not his love, not his friends. Nothing. It's not a compelling case for Batman as a hero. When one goes back to original Batman, there's this idea that lingers, or it could linger potentially, that, oh, so he's really just in this only because his parents died. That's a little shallow. That is a core motivation, but as Bruce Wayne evolves as a person, there's so much more added to it. And that's not explored here. Instead, we have over-the-top moments that almost come across as camp, but they're not being played that way. Such as Bruce having cardboard cutouts of Batman and Catwoman that he uses as targets to shoot at when he's training, because this Bruce uses guns because he doesn't have a thing with them because his parents didn't, but they did die because of guns, but later on. But I guess if that happened as an adult, it doesn't bother him the same way.
I've heard of you. You're the man who brought the Batman and Catwoman into my home. You're the man who watched as they slaughtered my parents. You're the man who broke everything.
This scene is right after the shooting those targets scene. This book vacillates in tone quite a bit. Like, as they clean up Booster, there's some intense sequencing of him not being okay, just being a broken person, and also the first references to his backstory. There's even a moment of intense disassociation where Booster is just completely disconnected from himself. And he decided to go back in time and be a hero, and his powers would all be from what he stole. He even got a costume and a hero name. He'd be Gold Star. This is in the future, of course. So he traveled back in time, became a hero, but they messed up his name and called him Booster Gold, and everything was happy ever after. This feels like someone read the wiki on Booster and then decided that the traits he had would work well for the story that they wanted to tell about certain types of trauma. This versus the trauma inherent in Booster's character being what's driving him forward. Because the decisions that he makes aren't really tied to this. They're more random. What do these feelings that Booster is expressing have to do with him trying to get Bruce this specific gift? That connection isn't fully formed. One could potentially make one, but this story doesn't. It then goes on to leave that moment behind and go back to comic relief mode. Skeets! Booster, where you been? I was dead. I got better. Where have you been? I was crazy. I see. And did you get better? I don't know. Probably not. Oh.
Enough!
The story wants to have its cake and eat it too. It wants to be a serious and dark and introspective character study, but it also wants to be funny. Not dark humor, but funny, wacky funny. All of these things combine into a kind of Frankenstein's monster of a story, where at the end, it's not quite clear what you're meant to take from it, except that people aren't okay. Has that advanced either the DC universe or these characters' journeys? It just kind of plops Booster in this state and then does that and then just leaves him there. Back to Bruce trying to save his parents. This timeline's parents. Ah, yes, that's perfect. Well done. Skeets, you heard the man. Take us back to 10 minutes before Bruce Wayne's parents were killed. Wink.
Did you just wink?
Skeets.
Why did you wink?
I didn't wink.
You winked. I saw you.
No. I mean, yes, I winked. Had to, there was a fly in my eye.
There was no fly.
Skeets! Now, of course, the wink was so that they go back to the first time that Bruce's parents were killed, the original timeline, the theater night. Zorro time!
What the hell did you do?
I'm from the future. I saw heroes, all the heroes, families of heroes, better than my family ever was, ever tried to be. And I went back, and now I'm a hero. I'm part of the family. You see, this would work better if one had established things about Booster in a more coherent sense. If you're not familiar with the changes that have been made in the universe to Booster's backstory, there's just a bunch left on the table. This could be the first time someone has ever encountered Booster, or it could be someone who's very familiar with all of Booster's history, and either way, this moment doesn't play well. It only works if one looks at this story and this Booster in isolation. And again, it still paints Booster as very stuck in that selfish moment. Unfair is in his New 52 origin onward, he threw games at the behest of his father, yes, but also to help pay for medical bills for his mom. So this moment is cherry picking what to use rather than working with all of Booster's trauma or accurately representing his motivations, which were more complex. What'd I do, Bruce, for your wedding? I did what heroes do, what families do. I got you a gift. Everybody in this story is pretty selfish, and the heroes aren't very heroic, and there's not much to aspire to. Just brings these ideas up and then doesn't do anything to help the heroes or make one feel that one should be rooting for them or even potentially want to continue on with their adventures. Booster, who's about to save Bruce's parents, so the one who's about to start this timeline off all over again, shows up, and the recurring joke about Bruce getting a cheese platter returns. And then there's an intense intercutting of young Bruce quoting the movie saying "God forgive me" as adult alternate timeline Bruce says "die" as he prepares to shoot Booster, but it's too late because Bruce's parents die. So this means that this Bruce's timeline doesn't exist anymore, so he shouldn't either. But he doesn't fade away. In the DC universe that could work. It could be one of those things where it takes a minute for time to catch up with itself, or it could be they could put him in one of those pocket universe things that they do sometimes. But none of that matters because that's not what is meant to happen in this moment. Again, we're not following through with the logic of the DC universe or lore in that sense. That's not what this story is focused on. It's focused instead on its psychological abstract trauma concepts, which is how we end up back paralleling the intro of this story. Someone killing themselves in front of Booster, this time Bruce. No, you don't have to. You just need to see. We did it. We saved the world. I guess this one wasn't awesome like Hal's. Does Tom King just hate Hal Jordan? I've read a few stories where he's depicted Hal Jordan in odd ways at this point. Between this and later in Heroes in Crisis where it says Hal doesn't even know what will is, but here he has so much will that he could override the ring's kill code and kill himself. Maybe he's just not sure what to do with him. But then why include him in the story? It's hard to believe that editorial would come back and be like, this story about Booster saving Bruce Wayne's parents, I think it needs to open with Hal Jordan killing himself. Also, did Booster get shot and die in that sequence? Should none of this have happened? And so the timeline is restored, and we end with Booster telling Batman and Catwoman about it and trying to get the blood off of his glasses. But will these glasses never be clean? And they don't react. Another way that this is not like for the man who has everything, because that showed the fallout of what this did. Superman has to work through his anger and come back to a content state with the status quo. This is the first time we've seen our main verse Batman in this story, and he says nothing. So this event has no real bearing on him, just Booster. It's just something he's hearing about in the abstract. And so we don't even know if, like the Bruce in the other timeline, he has any vestigial memories of that. This story doesn't really work. There's a lot about it that could be wildly entertaining. It has a lot of potential, but the overall tone and how it's delivered makes it fairly unpleasant. A concept like this, with how silly some of the things were on paper, could have ended up in the realm of a so bad it's good type of Elseworlds. One of those infamous ones like Catwoman, Guardian of Gotham. The one where, oh, Catwoman is Batman, essentially has the same backstory, but she's still Catwoman and there's sexy bodices everywhere. That means that Batman is Catwoman. He's murderous and loving it. But because Catwoman is Batman, that means that she has an Alfred, but it's sexy, everything's sexy. Sexy Two-Face. But not only is Catwoman Guardian of Gotham a full-blown Elseworld story, it's also not trying to be high art. It's not trying to do anything of too much depth. It's just trying to be a basic what-if kind of story. The Gift, by contrast, is trying to work through some psychological concepts like PTSD and imposter syndrome, and just base levels of trauma, but the way in which it does so does not do the concept or the characters justice. While this may be a Batman comic, this is very much a Booster Gold story. But the way the Booster is handled here doesn't really pull from the traumas of his past. And others have attempted it in a more subtle and perhaps effective way. Booster may be known to some as a joke and from the bwahaha era of the Justice League, the JLI, but when that book transitioned into other runs, there were moments where Booster's feelings of inadequacy were dealt with. There were some dark times for Booster. After the death of Ted Kord is of course a huge one. Even if one didn't want to or couldn't pull from those moments for editorial reasons, this story doesn't take Booster seriously. It takes the concepts it's using him to work through seriously, seriously, but not the character himself. And this creates some very jarring moments. Now, mileage will and did vary on this. Some feel this was a very strong display of repressed trauma and poor coping mechanisms, or that it's just important to see heroes struggle with these issues, full stop, and that can supersede the universe, the lore, canon, etc. And others felt that Booster's descent was a subtle and nuanced thing, and one just had to know what to look for. It must also be noted that how familiar one is or isn't with Booster Gold can impact how they read this and how it lands for them. Now it could get pretty extreme, this is fandom. Some went so far as to go with the Rick and Morty level of you just need a certain level of IQ to understand exactly what's going on. Or only fans of Booster Gold wouldn't like it, which is a very odd statement. If fans of the character don't like it, perhaps there's something to examine there. Fans can get a bit over the top, but if there appears to be a general consensus that something with the character isn't working, then perhaps that's something that should be looked at. But again, miles will vary. Some feel that some shouldn't listen to fans to any capacity ever. Whether one is a fan of Booster or not, he is an experience in this story, that's for sure. Hey Batman, Bruce Wayne. Hey Bruce Wayne, I got you a present. Regardless of where one sits, the story could have been stronger in many regards. On the Booster front, introducing some of his self-loathing early on rather than saving it for the last issue of the story arc, this could have helped make some of his more seemingly outlandish choices feel a bit more understandable. Even so, though a lot of them wouldn't track logically, but it would have helped. By the time his backstory and his feelings about it come into play, so many very shocking moments have happened that it makes any nuance in his characterization or portrayal that may be present difficult to ascertain. Like Bruce, the character doesn't feel very heroic or even likable for most of this story, and it can be very off-putting how often his actions make him appear completely ignorant of everything in the DC universe and the characters therein, even though he's meant to either know them or know about them. Meet cute, meow, secure. Wait, what? Everybody said she was a killer. The alternate timeline also misses out in exploring some intriguing concepts on its own. The idea of Bruce's parents living is not a new one, but there is still room to explore different reactions. What about a world where somehow Bruce became Batman anyway? What type of Batman is he with his parents still alive? What's his motivation? Is he more effective, less, more lax on criminals, harsher? What if he truly is the most vacuous version of the Bruce Wayne persona in this world without either the trauma or connections to different layers of Gotham and other cultures his parents' murder and training to be Batman afforded him? Even just taking some more time in universe to explain how Batman Bruce Wayne's death had a ripple effect, and Booster could have been used to do this. Because he's someone who has skeets and has the ability to look at the history, there could have been moments that would have been very interesting and fun for the reader. More direct than the rushed vagaries of, oh, without his strategy, they lost to Starro. It would also have helped them get more invested in the world. And the more sense the events that are happening make, the more invested a reader can get. That can be the difference between making a very strong story that one can connect with and one that's off the rails and potentially can be fun, but not in the ways that one is hoping it will be. They tried to do this with Flashpoint and it's more effectively done there. Just, oh no, Barry saved his mom and now the entire world is ending. Although again, if one just subscribes to the idea that that's what happens when one time travels, one may not have an issue with the fact that some of the things happening here appear quite random. One could also, because this was in the lead up to the wedding, have used this issue to confront the idea that Selena is the true one, which could have laid groundwork for when the wedding didn't happen. Or at least it could have been applied as such in hindsight. Instead, it's just a hodgepodge of depictions and references. Look how many guns Dick Grayson has. Or just random references to Batman's lore, such as when Booster sews the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman costume, or Bruce's mom saying this to him. Oh, Brucey, you never were the world's greatest detective. Now, there are things to enjoy in this. As mentioned, some enjoy the way that the trauma is presented and worked through. And it does have some solid moments, like the intercutting buildup in Bruce's parents' death at the end of issue 47, where all the characters' dialogue is intermingled, as if it's all a rush to the inevitable. Or the same expression Booster has in the first issue as the last on his face for each suicide, showcasing that he's a bit deadened inside, even from the start. The art is stellar. Tony S. Daniel makes all of these happenings look gorgeous. There are some funny moments and jokes that land. There is a joke about how he has less cake in this costume that I appreciate. It does note that he was pretty caked up in the 80s. Little things like how Bruce's combat outfit looks like the Punisher, because apparently if his parents died when he was an adult, that's what would happen. Bruce is just very unlikable in this story. I know some of you will say he's always unlikable. Next issue, time to let Joker kill a hostage in front of him. Hooray, come to his wedding in 3 issues. Not. On the positives, I'm personally a big fan of the over-the-top covers this run had. They reminded me of the Bronze Age. Not as glorious because they were a bit too accurate and on the nose, but they had their moments, especially 47. I get what the gift was going for, but it never fully gets there. It wants to showcase how Booster's trauma and his feeling of being an outsider and lack of family leads him to try and get this really out-of-touch gift. But it doesn't have the logic that holds it together when it comes to how Bruce is supposed to receive and appreciate his gift. Booster's instability is not portrayed early enough or consistently seriously enough to help facilitate an understanding of his actions. This alternate world itself doesn't feel fully informed by the change that has happened in the time stream. And while the concept is fun, it either doesn't make sense, takes itself too seriously in some places, or in other places not seriously enough, like how there are little bat logos on the guns. And on the whole, it's gratuitous in its use of violence, given what the violence is meant to convey, which is a connection to these serious and sensitive topics that it wants you to take, again, seriously. As a result, those moments are less shocking and thought-provoking, instead veer towards tasteless, as the story itself isn't over and over the top enough to be in an exploitation style. Instead, this is meant to be a more contemplative take on Batman. All of this culminates in a reading experience that could have been really fun, or poignant, maybe even both, but ultimately isn't. It has its moments, but overall it's just a bit of a grotty experience. And neither Booster or Bruce come out better for it. Booster may have likened this experience to For the Man Who Has Everything, but while it shares some conceptual bones, the two are very different, and Superman Annual number 11 is a far more effective and well-constructed story. I'll never forget I read The Gift, and that's certainly something. I recommend reading it for yourself because, well, you should form your own opinion about it. You could love it, and if you do, enjoy. Sincerely, from someone who enjoys Catwoman, Guardian of Gotham. The Gift is an interesting entry, and the Booster tries to use his time travel to change things that should not be changed chronicles, but it's not the best, and if you're looking for Booster-specific angst that feels like he's still being utilized as a character and not a plot device, and it feels like his personality and history are being worked through and evolving, the latter half of his debut 80 series is a good place to start. There are some very strong moments where he's traveling around with his sister, just excellent stuff. And it hits that balance of drama and fun. Just that entire series, actually, even from the first few issues, when you see how much he wants Superman's approval and how much Superman just is not having any of him and how that affects him. You can really see it. They portray it very well. And the one that does the most Booster work, his series Post-Crisis on Infinite Earths in the 2000s. There are some great moments in that, and they return to them as well. Like when he tries to save Barbara Gordon from the Joker. That one hurts. The one where he tries to save Ted Kord and he just clings so hard, that's a really hard arc. These moments deal with all the things the Gift is trying to. Booster's feelings of inadequacy, questioning if he deserves to be a hero at all, his PTSD over seeing friends die, his guilt over how he got his suit. But it also leaves him in a place to grow. He still feels heroic. These moments are shaping him, helping him become a better hero in person. There's optimism and a belief in him as a character. While The Gift, at least for me, doesn't feel like it leaves his character in a space like that. So if you really like Booster and you want to check out Booster things, you can check those all out, mostly digitally, but some of it's been collected physically, or you can scour eBay like I do. But those are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. Do you think I'm dead wrong? Pistols at Dawn. Do you think this is a great story? Lots of fun, good character growth for Booster. Just interesting. Do you enjoy seeing how these concepts are played out in this story? Did you just enjoy The Gift and think it wasn't that deep? Have a favorite moment? I want to hear it. Let's talk about it. You sharing your opinions, that's the real gift. I know that sounds sarcastic, but I really mean it. I do enjoy reading your opinions. Thanks so much for taking some time today to spend it discussing comics with me. I know this was a longer one, so I really appreciate it if you stuck out to the end. Please do all the YouTube things, like, share, comment, subscribe. If you're interested, please click the link down below for the Kickstarter for Re-Animator. I, of course, as always, will have more videos coming soon, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.